Are you one of the many who either plop into chairs or need to rock to get ourselves up from sitting? I'm physical therapist Katie Wolfley, and today we're talking about the reasons of why we plop and rock and exercises we can do to improve upon this. When it comes to producing movement, our muscles work in two ways to help us move against gravity. The first is when our muscles shorten. They contract and they move us or power us away from the earth, and this is called a concentric movement. The other way that they move is to help us slowly move against gravity or lower us down towards the earth, almost like pulling a piece of Laffy Taffy. This is still strength, and this is called eccentric contraction. It's important that all of our muscles be able to do both of these things in order to help us move. Even as we're walking, all of our muscles are going through those different types of contractions, and walking is basically controlled falling against gravity as we move. The best example to kind of demonstrate these two movements is as simple as a bicep curl. So if we have a weight in our hand and we are moving our arm, bending our elbow up against gravity, my bicep running from here to here is going to shorten and pull that elbow up. As I slowly lower that weight down towards the floor, that muscle goes through the eccentric contraction or lengthening, like pulling that piece of Laffy Taffy, so that my elbow doesn't just drop right down to the ground and I lose that weight. So when we are moving from sitting to standing, we're using a lot of power to get up against gravity using concentric contractions of our quads and our glutes. So if we are having difficulty moving from sitting to standing easily without having to do that rock, we're lacking power from those quads and those glutes. When we are moving from a standing to sitting position, we are lowering ourselves down against gravity, trying to get down into that seat. And as we're doing that, we're using that eccentric control of the quads and the glutes to lower ourselves down. So if we're doing a lot of plopping, quick sitting down, that's where we're missing that eccentric control. So here are two functional exercises, basically practicing those activities in ways that you can change the challenge to help yourself build from an easy to a harder transition to be able to get up and out of that chair or slowly lower down easily. The first is to work through a sit to stand. It's easiest for us to move from sitting to standing when we are in a position where our hips are sitting higher than our knees. We all know if we sit down on a really low couch, it's very difficult to get up. But if we're sitting on, say, a higher kind of bar stool, it's easier for us to get from sitting to standing because it's less workload on those major muscle groups. So to practice this and make it easier on yourself, you're going to grab a nice sturdy chair with a hard seat, but you can place a pillow, a blanket, some type of cushion on that seat so that as I'm sitting, my hips are higher than my knees. This will make it easier for us. The other important thing to remember is your positioning. A lot of times people just don't know how to position their legs to make it easiest on them. And the best way to do that is make sure that you're sitting towards the front of your seat. If you're sitting way back, way more difficult. Bring yourself towards the front edge. Our feet want to be hip width apart. And you want your ankle joint just slightly behind where your knee joint is sitting. When we're moving, we want to bow our chest forward so we hinge through our hips. This allows us to really power through the glutes as we stand. As we bring our weight forward, we should feel the weight be in our heels as opposed to feeling weight forward in our toes. When we feel that weight in our heels, we can push through them, which will help us drive through the glutes to get us powered up. Obviously, if you're having difficulty where you really need some arm rests, absolutely start in a chair where you have that ability. And as you progress through these exercises, work through reducing how much reliance you use on those hands. Maybe they go from an actual push to just kind of a hover as you're moving through those transitions and challenging yourself. The other thing to keep in mind is that we lower down the seat as you get better at it. So maybe you started with 2 pillows on that seat, and as it's getting easier, pull one out. Challenging yourself by going to that lower height so that we're bringing the hips down towards the knees as those muscles get stronger. Practicing through these exercises, you can begin by working through power, working at 10 repetitions at a time, 2 to 3 sets. And as it's getting easier, progress that to a set of 15. Second exercise that I want you to work on is then working into a squat towards a chair. So this is obviously a little bit harder. This is working on more of that eccentric loading as we slowly bring ourselves towards the seat with our hips and then working on trying to power up without sitting. So as you're starting these exercises, same as the last, you can start with a higher seat so that we are working ourselves to touch a higher surface. And as you get better at it, progressively making that a lower surface that we are reaching our hips towards. Also, you might start by working on that squat towards the chair and actually touching the surface and coming back up, versus then actually just kind of going right above the seat, never touching it, and coming right back. Your stance and your positioning, as we talked about with the sit to stand, should be the same. Our feet are hip width apart. Our knees need to point forward with our toes. If you find your knees crashing together, kind of coming together in a V as we sit back, try and control those staying out to the sides. That'll help the glutes contract a little bit easier. And we are working on lowering ourselves back so that the weight again is in our heels as we reach towards the seat, and then pushing through those heels to power back up. Also, if you're looking to need to use the armrests, of course, you can use it as you're working through that control, and then progressively work with maybe the arms going forward so you're not tempted to use them, or relying more heavily on the legs. Same with this exercise. Work through 10 repetitions at a time, progressing how many sets you can do. And as that's getting easier, we're working through endurance at that point. We can transition to 15 reps in a set and then increase our sets from there. You can also add in a weight into your hands, right? Sometimes we're moving and we have something in our hands, a child, an object as we're going to sit down. Adding a weight into the hands as we're working through transition is obviously going to put more work into the legs and get you better power as well. So try these exercises to improve that strength and the control from getting in those transitions up and out from a chair. But if you find yourself struggling and you need some more guidance or some extra cues on how to build that strength, get in touch with us so we can get you a personal evaluation. You can find us at buffalorehab.com. And as always, thanks for watching.